Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the mining reports on his desk. The numbers were good. Very good. The colony on Kepler 442b had been pulling rare metals from the planet's core for 3 years now, and they were ahead of schedule. The automated mining machines worked day and night, digging deeper and deeper into the ground. Jake was the colony administrator, which meant he was responsible for everything that happened on this small world. 347 people lived here, mostly miners and engineers. They had come from Earth to make a new life among the stars. The pay was excellent and the work was honest. Most days, Jake felt proud of what they had built. Lisa Carter knocked on his office door. She was the chief engineer, a smart woman who knew every machine in the colony. Her face looked worried, which was not normal for Lisa. She usually smiled and made jokes, even when things went wrong. "Jake, we need to talk," Lisa said as she sat down. "Something strange is happening with the mining equipment?" Jake put down his coffee and looked at her. "What kind of strange?" "The deep core miners are picking up movement, big movement. It's not geological activity. The computers can't identify what it is, but it's moving up toward the surface." Jake frowned. They had done extensive surveys before starting the mining operation. The planet was supposed to be dead, with no life forms larger than bacteria. That was why they chose this place. It was safe and empty. "Show me the data," Jake said. Lisa pulled out her tablet and placed it on his desk. The screen showed a three-dimensional map of the mining tunnels. Red dots were scattered throughout the lower levels, moving in patterns that looked almost organized. "The movement started 3 days ago," Lisa explained. "At first, we thought it was just shifting rock. But look at these patterns. They're too regular, too coordinated." Jake studied the screen. The red dots were moving upward through the tunnel system. Whatever was down there, it was coming toward them. "How long until it reaches the surface?" Jake asked. "At current speed, maybe 2 days, maybe less." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He picked up his communicator and called Dr. Amanda Rodriguez. She was their xenobiologist, the expert on alien life forms. If anyone could figure out what was happening, it would be Amanda. 10 minutes later, Amanda arrived at Jake's office. She was a small woman with dark hair and sharp eyes. She looked at Lisa's data for a long time without speaking. "This is not good," Amanda finally said. "These movement patterns suggest organized behavior." "Large organized behavior? What do you mean?" Jake asked. "I think something has been sleeping deep underground, something big. The mining operations have disturbed it, and now it's waking up." Lisa leaned forward. "Sleeping? For how long?" "Could be thousands of years. Maybe longer. Some species can hibernate for incredibly long periods." Amanda pointed to the screen. "Look at how they're moving. They're following the mining tunnels, using our own paths to reach the surface. That shows intelligence." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the mining equipment working in the distance. Large machines moved across the rocky landscape, digging and processing ore. The workers looked so small next to the massive equipment. "What do we do?" Jake asked. "We need to evacuate," Amanda said immediately. "If I'm right about what's down there, our defenses won't be enough." The colony had basic defensive systems. A few energy barriers, some automated turrets, and a small security force. It was designed to keep out pirates or wild animals, not whatever was coming up from the planet's core. Jake walked back to his desk and opened the emergency protocols. He had hoped he would never need to use them. "I'll contact the Galactic Council." Jake said, "Request immediate evacuation support." "They're 3 days away at minimum," Lisa said. "Maybe 4 days? Then we hold out until help arrives." Amanda shook her head. "Jake, you don't understand. If these are the creatures I think they are, 4 days might as well be 4 years. We need help now." Jake's communicator beeped. It was Danny Walsh, the communications officer. His voice sounded scared. "Jake, you need to get to the communication center, now." The three of them ran through the corridors of the main habitat dome. Other colonists were going about their daily work, unaware of the danger moving toward them from below. Jake decided not to tell them yet. He didn't want to cause panic until he knew more. The communication center was filled with screens and blinking lights. Danny sat at the main console, his face pale. He was a young man, barely 25, but he was excellent at his job. "Jake, the seismic sensors are going crazy," Danny said. "Something big is moving underground, really big." On the main screen, Jake could see the seismic data. The readings showed massive disturbances throughout the underground tunnel system. Whatever was down there was not just one creature. It was many creatures, very many. "How many?" Jake asked. "I can't be sure, but the computer estimates thousands, maybe tens of thousands." Amanda looked at the data and her face went white. "Jake, we need to evacuate immediately, not tomorrow. Not in a few hours now. I'll send the distress signal," Danny said. He began typing commands into his console. "Send it to everyone," Jake ordered. "The Galactic Council, the Terran Defense. Network any ship within range. Use emergency priority codes." Danny's fingers flew over the keyboard. "Signal is ready. Colonial identification codes, population count, and request for immediate evacuation assistance. Send it." The signal launched into space, racing toward the stars at the speed of light. Jake hoped someone would receive it in time. Suddenly the lights flickered, the building shook slightly. On the seismic display, a massive spike appeared. "They're breaking through the upper levels," Amanda said. "Jake, we have maybe 12 hours before they reach the surface." Jake grabbed the colony-wide communicator. "Attention all colonists. This is Administrator Morrison. We have a code red. Emergency. All personnel report to the main habitat dome immediately. Bring only essential supplies. This is not a drill." Throughout the colony, alarms began to sound. People stopped their work and began moving toward the central building. Jake watched them through the windows. These were good people. Miners, engineers, doctors, teachers. They had come to this distant world to build something new. Now they were in danger, and it was his responsibility to keep them safe. Lisa was working at another console. "I'm activating all defensive systems," she said. "The energy barriers are online, and the turrets are armed. It won't stop them, but it might slow them down." "How long can we hold out?" Jake asked. "If Amanda is right about the numbers, maybe 24 hours, maybe less." Jake looked at the communication screen. The distress signal was traveling through space, but space was vast. Even at light speed, it would take time to reach anyone. Who could help? "Danny, keep sending the signal. Every 10 minutes, someone has to hear it. Already on it, Jake." The building shook again, stronger this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside, Jake could see the mining equipment had stopped working. The automated systems had detected the seismic activity and shut down for safety. "Jake," Amanda said quietly, "you should know something. If these are the creatures I think they are, they're not just dangerous. They're aggressive. They see any other life form as a threat to be eliminated." Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. 347 people were counting on him to keep them safe. The distress signal was racing through space, but would anyone receive it in time? The ground shook again. Somewhere deep below, ancient creatures were climbing toward the surface. Jake could only hope that help would arrive before they did. The distress signal from Kepler 442b reached the Galactic Council's Emergency Response Center on Centauri Prime after traveling through space for 6 hours. The massive space station orbited a blue star, its silver towers reaching toward the void. Inside the emergency center, thousands of operators monitored signals from across the galaxy. Council member Zethkri was reviewing daily reports when his aide, a young officer named Veltar, approached his desk. Zethkri belonged to the Altarian Commonwealth, a species that looked like tall, thin humans with pale blue skin and large eyes. His people had been part of the Galactic Council for over 2,000 years. "Council member, we have received a priority distress signal from a human colony," Veltar said. Placing a data pad on the desk, Zethkri picked up the pad and read the information. A mining colony with 347 humans was under attack by unknown creatures. The signal indicated they needed immediate evacuation. Where is the nearest council fleet? Zethkri asked. The fourth fleet is currently near the vegan system. They could reach the colony in 3 days. Zethkri frowned. 3 days would be too late for an evacuation. By then, the colonists would likely be dead. Send the order to the fourth fleet anyway, Zethkri said, and contact any commercial vessels in the area. Maybe someone can help. Veltar began working on his communicator. The Galactic Council had procedures for emergencies like this, but they were slow. The galaxy was vast, and even the fastest ships took time to travel between stars. Council member, Veltar said after a few minutes. Something unusual is happening. The human distress signal has triggered automatic responses from multiple networks. What kind of responses? Military networks, human military networks. And they're not just acknowledging the signal, they're responding with fleet movement orders. Zethkri sat up straighter. The humans had been members of the Galactic Council for only 50 years. They were considered a young species still learning their place in the galaxy. Most council members thought of humans as peaceful traders and explorers. How many responses? Zethkri asked. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The signals are coming from all over this sector of the galaxy. Zethkri stood up and walked to the main display screen. The screen showed a map of the galaxy with the location of the human colony marked in red. As he watched, blue dots began appearing on the map. Each dot represented a human ship responding to the distress signal. This is impossible, Zethkri said. The humans don't have that many ships. The responses are authenticated, council member. These are real military vessels. More blue dots appeared on the map. Ships that were supposedly hundreds of light years away were suddenly reporting they could reach the colony within hours. Ships that the council didn't even know existed were appearing on the display. Get me Admiral Kate Sullivan, Zethkri said. I need to speak with the human fleet commander. Admiral Kate Sullivan was aboard the TDF Vengeance when the distress signal reached her ship. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been in the human space navy for 30 years, and she had been waiting for a moment like this. The bridge of the Vengeance was busy with activity. Officers worked at their stations, monitoring communications and coordinating fleet movements. The ship itself was larger than most people realized. The humans had told the Galactic Council it was an exploration vessel, but it was actually a battleship. Admiral, her communications officer said, we have a priority distress signal from Kepler 442b. Colonial identification codes match our database. Kate looked at the signal data on her screen. A mining colony was under attack by unknown hostile creatures. The colonists needed immediate evacuation. Time to reach the colony? Kate asked. 18 hours at maximum speed. Too long. What other ships do we have in the area? Her tactical officer, Commander Helen Brooks, pulled up a display. We have 15 ships within 12 hours of the colony. The Retribution battle group is closest. Kate nodded. Captain Ryan Hughes commanded the Retribution. He was a good officer, and his ships were ready for combat. Send priority orders to Captain Hughes. His battle group will lead the advance force. Full military authority. Yes, Admiral. Kate watched as the orders were transmitted. Within minutes, responses began coming. Back, not just from the Retribution, but from ships across the sector. The human fleet was larger than the galaxy realized. Admiral, Commander Brooks said, we're receiving fleet movement confirmations from 73 ships. All of them are moving toward the colony, Kate smiled. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. Captain Ryan Hughes received his orders while his ship was traveling between star systems. The Retribution was officially listed as a cargo transport, but it was actually a heavy cruiser. The ship's weapons were hidden behind false hull plates, and its crew was trained for combat. Captain, his first officer said, we have priority orders from Admiral Sullivan. There's a human colony under attack. Ryan read the orders on his screen. A mining colony with 347 civilians was in danger. He was ordered to lead the rescue operation with full military authority. Set course for Kepler 442b, Ryan ordered. Maximum speed and send a signal to the other ships in our battle group. Yes, sir. Ryan's battle group consisted of 16 ships. To the galaxy, they looked like ordinary commercial vessels, cargo ships, passenger transports, and research vessels. But they were all military ships in disguise. Captain, his communications officer said, we're receiving signals from other human ships. They're all moving toward the colony. Ryan looked at the tactical display. Ships were converging on Kepler 442b from all directions. Ships that had been scattered across the galaxy were suddenly working together like parts of a single machine. How many ships? Ryan asked. Current count is over 100, sir, and more are still responding. Ryan felt a sense of pride. The human fleet had been preparing for this moment for decades. Every ship, every crew, every weapon had been positioned for exactly this kind of emergency. Back on Centauri Prime, Zethkri was watching the situation with growing concern. The number of human ships responding to the distress signal had reached over 150. These were not small vessels. The energy signatures indicated heavy cruisers, battleships, and carrier groups. This is impossible, Zethkri said to his aide. The humans reported only 12 military vessels to the Council. The responses are all authenticated with proper military codes, Veltar replied. These ships are real. Zethkri activated his communicator and sent a priority message to Admiral Kate Sullivan. After a few minutes, her face appeared on his screen. Admiral Sullivan, Zethkri said, I need to ask you about the ships responding to the colony distress signal. Kate's expression was calm. What would you like to know, Council member? Our sensors show over 150 human military vessels moving toward Kepler 442b. The Council was told that humanity had only 12 ships. The Council was told that humanity had 12 ships assigned to Council operations, Kate replied. We never said those were our only ships. Zethkri felt a chill. How many ships does humanity actually have? Enough to protect our colonies. Council member. Enough to ensure that no human settlement ever faces extinction alone. The communication ended, leaving Zethkri staring at the display screen. The blue dots representing human ships continued to multiply. What the galaxy had thought was humanity's entire fleet was actually less than 1% of their real military power. Veltar, Zethkri said quietly, send a message to all council members. We need an emergency session. I think we have seriously underestimated the humans. Across the galaxy, other species were beginning to notice the massive human fleet movement. Intelligence officers were frantically updating their reports. The peaceful human traders and explorers were revealing themselves to be something much more dangerous. The humans had been in the galaxy for 50 years, quietly building up their strength. Every trade route, every colony, every diplomatic mission had been part of a vast military network. Now, triggered by a single distress signal, the galaxy was seeing humanity's true power for the first time. The most lethal fleet in the galaxy was not being summoned. It had been waiting all along. The first creatures broke through the surface of Kepler 442b just as the sun was setting. Jake Morrison watched from the main habitat dome as the ground cracked open near the mining equipment. Something dark and massive pushed through the rocky soil. Danny, are you getting this on the sensors? Jake asked. Danny Walsh was at his communication station, his hands moving quickly over the controls. Yes, sir. The creatures are about 3 meters tall, insect-like, with heavy armor plating. They're moving in organized groups? Dr. Amanda Rodriguez stood next to Jake, studying the creatures through the dome's reinforced windows. Those are Vex, she said quietly. I've seen pictures in the xenogology databases. They're supposed to be extinct. Apparently not, Jake sighed. More creatures emerged from the ground. They had 6 legs, sharp claws, and heads that looked like they belonged on giant beetles. Their armor was dark green and seemed to absorb light. They moved with purpose, spreading out across the landscape in formation. How many? Jake asked. Sensors show at least 2,000 on the surface, Danny replied. And more are coming up. Lisa Carter was at the defensive control station. Energy barriers are online? Automated turrets are tracking the creatures. But Jake, our weapons are designed for human-sized targets. These things are huge. The creatures had noticed the habitat dome. They were moving toward it, their claws clicking against the rocky ground. Jake could see intelligence in their movements. They were not just animals, they were planning something. Danny, any word from the rescue fleet? Jake asked. Nothing yet. But wait, ... Danny's face lit up. I'm getting a signal. It's human military codes. Jake felt a surge of hope. Put it through. The main communication screen flickered to life. The face of a man in his 40s appeared. He wore a dark blue uniform with military insignia. This is Captain Ryan Hughes of the TDF Retribution. We are 12 hours out from your position. Ken, you hold out until then? Jake looked at the approaching creatures. Captain, we have thousands of hostile aliens moving toward our position. Our defenses are limited. Understood. We're coming in fast. Keep your people safe until we arrive. The communication ended. Jake turned to Lisa. 12 hours. Can we hold them off for 12 hours? I don't know, but we'll try. The first wave of creatures reached the energy barriers. The barriers were designed to stop small arms fire and keep out dangerous animals. They were not designed to stop 3-meter-tall armored aliens. The creatures tested the barriers with their claws. Sparks flew as they touched the energy fields. The barriers held, but Jake could see they were straining. Lisa, how long will the barriers last? Jake asked. Maybe 6 hours, maybe less if they figure out how to overload them. Amanda was watching the creatures carefully. They're learning. Look at how they're moving. They're testing different parts of the barrier, looking for weak points. Jake activated the colony-wide communicator. All colonists, this is Administrator Morrison. We are under attack by hostile aliens. The barriers are holding for now, but we need to prepare for the worst. All security personnel report to defensive positions. Everyone else move to the center of the dome. The colonists moved quickly and quietly. These were tough people who had traveled across the galaxy to build a new life. They were scared, but they were not panicking. The creatures found a weak point in the barrier near the power generator. They concentrated their attacks there, using their claws to tear at the energy field. Sparks flew, and alarms began to sound. Barrier breach in Section 7, Lisa reported. Automated turrets are engaging. The turrets fired energy beams at the creatures. The beams hit their armor and bounced off, doing little damage. A few creatures were knocked back, but they got up and kept coming. The turrets aren't working, Lisa said. Their armor is too thick? Jake grabbed a rifle from the weapons locker. Then we'll have to stop them ourselves. The security team took positions around the dome. They were only 12 people, but they were well trained. They had rifles, grenades, and body armor. It would not be enough against thousands of creatures, but they would fight anyway. The creatures poured through the breach in the barrier. They moved fast for such large beings, their claws finding purchase on the metal floors. The security team opened fire, their rifles creating bright flashes in the darkness. Some shots found gaps in the creature's armor. Green blood sprayed across the floor. But for every creature that fell, 10 more took its place. Fall back to the inner barriers, Jake ordered. The colonists retreated deeper into the dome. The inner barriers were stronger, but Jake knew they would not last long either. Danny was still at his communication station, working frantically. Jake, I'm getting multiple signals now. There are ships dropping out of hyperspace near the planet. How many ships? Jake asked while firing at an approaching creature. I count 16 ships. They're human military vessels. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Can you reach them? I'm trying. Yes, I have Captain Hughes. The screen flickered and Captain Ryan Hughes appeared again. Behind him, Jake could see a busy ship bridge with officers working at their stations. Captain Hughes, we're under heavy attack. The creatures have breached our outer defenses. We see them on our sensors. Hold your position. We're beginning orbital bombardment now. Jake looked up through the dome's transparent ceiling. In the darkness above, he could see flashes of light. The human ships were firing from orbit, their weapons targeting the creatures on the surface. The bombardment was precise and deadly. Explosions erupted around the dome, vaporizing groups of creatures. The orbital weapons were far more powerful than anything the colony had. "Those weapons," Amanda said in amazement. "They're not standard Council technology. They're something else entirely." More creatures kept coming from underground, but the orbital bombardment was thinning their numbers. The human ships were not just firing randomly. They were targeting specific locations with surgical precision. "Captain," Jake said into the communicator, "how did you know exactly where to fire?" "We've been monitoring your situation for the past hour. Our sensors can track individual creatures from orbit. We know exactly where they are." Jake was impressed. The human military had technology that the Galactic Council did not know about. Commander Nicole Barnes was aboard one of the ships, preparing her ground assault team. She was a woman in her 30s with short black hair and intense eyes. She had been fighting aliens for 10 years, and she was very good at her job. "Team leaders, listen up," Nicole said to her soldiers. "We have civilians trapped in a dome, surrounded by hostile aliens. Our job is to get them out alive. The aliens are tough, but they're not invincible." Her soldiers were wearing advanced combat armor and carrying weapons that looked different from standard military equipment. These were not the weapons that humanity had shown to the Galactic Council. "Drop ships are ready," her pilot reported. "We can have you on the ground in 10 minutes. Do it." The dropships launched from the main vessels, racing toward the planet's surface. Each ship carried 20 soldiers in full combat gear. Lieutenant Chris Parker was in the lead ship, studying tactical displays. Intelligence reports show the aliens are organized but predictable. They follow basic hive tactics. We can use that against them. The dropships landed near the habitat dome, their engines creating clouds of dust and debris. The soldiers emerged quickly, forming defensive positions around the landing zone. Nicole looked at the situation through her helmet display. Thousands of creatures were surrounding the dome, with more emerging from underground tunnels. But she had faced worse odds before. "Parker, take your team and secure the dome. Everyone else, we're going to clear these tunnels." The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. Their weapons fired energy beams that could penetrate the creature's armor. Their tactics were aggressive and coordinated. Jake watched from inside the dome as the human soldiers fought. They moved like they had been training for this exact situation. Every shot was precise, every movement had purpose. "Denny," Jake said, "tell Captain Hughes that his people are incredible." "I will, sir, but Jake, look at the sensor readings." "More ships are arriving." Jake looked at the display. The original 16 ships had been joined by dozens more. The human fleet was growing. Larger by the hour, the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's true strength had been hidden for decades. News of the human military response spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On the planet Zarian, home to the Galactic Council's intelligence service, Director Kaveth watched the reports with growing alarm. His species looked like tall, thin humanoids with silver skin and 4 arms. They had been gathering intelligence for over 3,000 years. "Show me the latest numbers," Kaveth said to his assistant. The holographic display updated with new information. "Current human fleet count is 237 ships. Energy signatures indicate heavy cruisers, battleships, and carrier groups. Some of these vessels are larger than anything in the Council database." Kaveth studied the display. Each ship was represented by a blue dot, and the dots were converging on Kepler 442b from all directions. How did we miss this? How did we not know humans had this many military vessels? The ships were disguised as commercial vessels, cargo transports, and research stations. Our intelligence reports show they have been building this fleet for decades while telling us they were peaceful explorers. Kaveth felt a chill. The intelligence service had been watching humanity for 50 years, and they had missed the largest military buildup in galactic history on Kepler 442b. Admiral Kate Sullivan arrived with her flagship and 12 escort vessels. The Vengeance was a massive ship, over 2 kilometers long, with weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. The Galactic Council had been told it was an exploration ship. Kate stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display. The planet's surface was covered with red dots representing the alien creatures. Blue dots showed human forces and they were winning. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "Captain Martinez is requesting permission to deploy experimental weapons." Kate looked at the display. Captain Ben Martinez commanded a battle group that included 3 ships carrying weapons that had never been tested in combat. These were weapons that could crack planets. Permission granted, but use minimum power settings. "We want to eliminate the threat, not destroy the planet." "Yes, Admiral." Martinez's ships moved into position above the planet. The weapons they carried were based on technology that humanity had developed in secret. The galaxy thought humans were still using primitive energy weapons, but these new weapons could manipulate matter at the molecular level. Jake Morrison watched from the habitat dome as strange lights appeared in the sky. The lights moved in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When they touched the ground, the alien creatures simply stopped existing. "What kind of weapons are those?" Dr. Amanda Rodriguez asked. Danny Walsh was monitoring the communication channels. "I'm picking up technical data from the ships. These weapons are something called molecular disruptors. They break down the target at the atomic level." Amanda stared at the display. "The technology is centuries ahead of anything the Council has." "How did humans develop it?" "Maybe they didn't develop it recently," Jake said. "Maybe they've been working on it for a long time." The molecular disruptors were devastatingly effective. Entire groups of creatures were eliminated in seconds. But the weapons were precise, targeting only the aliens and leaving the surrounding area undamaged. Commander Nicole Barnes was leading her ground forces through the underground tunnels. The tunnels were vast, stretching for kilometers in all directions. Her soldiers moved carefully, their advanced sensors guiding them through the darkness. "Major Foster, what's the status on the tunnel mapping?" Nicole asked through her communicator. "Major Amy Foster was with the engineering corps, using specialized equipment to map the underground network. We've identified the main breeding chambers. The creatures have been reproducing down here for who knows how long." Nicole studied the tunnel map on her display. The network was enormous, with chambers large enough to hold thousands of creatures. "How many are we looking at?" "Conservative estimate is 50,000 creatures, maybe more." Nicole felt a moment of concern. Even with their advanced weapons, 50,000 creatures would be a challenge. But then she remembered the ships arriving. "In orbit, Commander Barnes," came a voice through her communicator. "This is Colonel Steve Andrews." "We're in position for deep core bombardment?" Nicole smiled. Colonel Andrews commanded the Deep Strike Weapons Team. Their job was to collapse underground structures using specialized bombs that could penetrate deep into the planet's crust. "Permission to proceed, Colonel." "Understood. Beginning bombardment in 60 seconds. All ground teams clear the tunnels." Nicole's soldiers moved quickly toward the surface. Behind them, they could hear the creatures following, their claws clicking. Against the stone walls, the deep core bombardment began with a series of precisely placed explosions. The bombs penetrated deep into the planet's crust before detonating. The explosions were designed to collapse the tunnel system without damaging. The surface. The ground shook as the tunnels collapsed. Dust and debris filled the air. The creatures' breeding chambers were destroyed. Along with most of the creatures still underground, Jake felt the vibrations through the habitat dome. "Are they bombing the planet?" "No," Danny replied, monitoring the communication channels. "They're collapsing the underground tunnels. It's surgical bombardment, designed to eliminate the threat without damaging the surface." Amanda watched the tactical display. "The precision is incredible. They're destroying a network of tunnels that extends for hundreds of kilometers, but they're not damaging the mining equipment or the colony infrastructure." More human ships continued to arrive. Captain Ben Martinez's experimental weapons had been so effective that word spread through the fleet. Other ships wanted to test their own advanced systems. Sergeant Tony Miller was leading a squad of soldiers in cleaning up the remaining creatures on the surface. His team was equipped with weapons that fired energy beams capable of penetrating the creature's armor. "Miller, what's your count?" Nicole asked through the communicator. "We've eliminated about 300 creatures in this sector. The orbital bombardment got most of them, but some are still fighting." Tony's soldiers moved with mechanical precision. They had trained for situations like this, and their equipment was designed specifically for fighting alien threats. Each soldier carried enough firepower to destroy a small building. "The creatures are tough," Tony reported, "but they're not adapting to our tactics. They keep using the same attack patterns." "That's because they're not used to fighting humans," Nicole replied. "Most species in the galaxy use predictable military tactics. We don't." Representatives from other species had arrived to observe the battle. They claimed to be diplomats, but they were actually gathering intelligence. What they saw shocked them. Ambassador Thalenas of the Centauri Federation watched from his ship as the human fleet demonstrated capabilities that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. The precision of their weapons, the coordination of their forces, and the sheer size of their fleet were beyond anything his people had imagined. "How many ships do they have?" he asked his military advisor. "Current count is over 400 ships, Ambassador, and they're still arriving." Thelenos studied the tactical display. "This is not a rescue operation. This is a military demonstration. They're showing the galaxy what they can do." The military advisor nodded. "Every weapon fired, every tactical maneuver, every coordinated strike is being broadcast across galactic networks. They want everyone to see this." Admiral Kate Sullivan knew that the galaxy was watching. She had planned this moment for years. The distress signal from Kepler 442b had provided the perfect opportunity to reveal humanity's true capabilities. "Communications, open a channel to all observing vessels," Kate ordered. The communication screen activated, showing Kate's face to ships across the system. Representatives from dozens of species were watching. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Terran Defense Force. As you can see, humanity takes the protection of its citizens very seriously. We have the capability to defend our colonies anywhere in the galaxy." The alien representatives watched in silence. They were seeing the end of their assumptions about humanity. "The creatures threatening this colony have been eliminated," Kate continued. "Our colonists are safe. But this operation has also served another purpose. It has shown the galaxy that humanity is not the weak, peaceful species you thought we were." Jake Morrison was finally evacuated from the planet along with the other colonists. As his transport ship lifted off, he looked back at the surface. The alien creatures were gone, eliminated by the most advanced military force in the galaxy. "Jake," Amanda said, sitting next to him, "do you realize what just happened? Humanity just revealed that they're the most powerful military force in the galaxy." Jake nodded. "And it all started with a distress signal." The transport ship joined the massive human fleet in orbit. Jake looked out the window at the hundreds of ships surrounding the planet. The galaxy would never be the same. The Vex threat was completely eliminated within 72 hours of the first human ship's arrival. The speed and efficiency of the operation sent shockwaves through every government in the galaxy. What had seemed like an impossible rescue mission had become a demonstration of overwhelming military superiority. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking at the tactical display. The planet below was secure. The alien creatures had been wiped out, their underground network destroyed, and their breeding chambers eliminated. Not a single human colonist had been killed. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "we're receiving requests from over 30 species asking for diplomatic meetings." Kate smiled. "Tell them we'll be happy to meet with them. But the meetings will be held on our terms at locations of our choosing." The requests for meetings were coming from species that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence for 50 years. Now they all wanted to talk. Captain Ryan Hughes was overseeing the final cleanup operations on the planet's surface. His soldiers were checking every tunnel, every cave, every possible hiding place. There would be no survivors among the creatures. "Captain," Lieutenant Chris Parker reported, We've confirmed complete elimination of the hostile species. The planet is secure, Ryan nodded. Good work. Begin establishing permanent monitoring stations. We want early warning if anything like this ever happens again. The monitoring stations were not just for watching the planet. They were part of a larger network that humanity was building across the galaxy. Every human colony, every trade route, every diplomatic station was connected to this network. Jake Morrison and the other colonists were relocated to a new world called New Haven. The planet was similar to Earth, with blue skies and green forests. But unlike their previous colony, New Haven was protected by a permanent military presence. Jake stood in his new office, looking out at the landscape. 3 large ships orbited the planet, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. The ships were officially listed as cargo vessels, but Jake knew better now. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez joined him at the window. She had been promoted to Senior Xenobiological Advisor for the human military. Her job was to identify potential threats before they became problems. It's hard to believe how much has changed, Amanda said. A week ago, we thought we were alone out there. Now we know we're part of the most powerful military force in the galaxy, Jake nodded. Do you think the other species will accept this new reality? They don't have a choice. We've shown them what happens when humans are threatened. On Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council was holding an emergency session. Council member Zethkri stood at the center of the chamber, addressing representatives from hundreds of species. The recent events at Kepler 442b have changed everything we thought we knew about humanity, Zethkri said. They have revealed military capabilities that exceed our most advanced technologies. The chamber was filled with worried voices. Species that had considered themselves major powers were suddenly questioning their position in the galaxy. How did we miss this? Asked Representative Morduk of the Vegan Empire. Our intelligence services monitored human activities for 50 years. Because the humans were smarter than we gave them credit for, Zethkri replied. Every trade mission, every diplomatic contact, every peaceful exploration was part of a larger strategy. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had not been learning their place in the galaxy. They had been preparing to change the galaxies. Balance of Power. Captain Ryan Hughes was summoned to address the Galactic Council. He arrived at Centauri Prime in a ship that looked like a simple transport but was actually a heavily armed cruiser. The council members were nervous as he entered the chamber. Captain Hughes, Zethkri said, the council would like to understand humanity's intentions. Your recent military demonstration has caused concern among many species. Ryan looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces. Some looked worried, others looked angry, and a few looked frightened. Our intentions are simple, Ryan said. We want to protect our people and our colonies. The events at Kepler 442b showed us that threats can appear anywhere, at any time. But your fleet, Representative Morduk said. You have hundreds of ships. Why did you hide this from the council? We didn't hide anything. We simply didn't volunteer information that wasn't requested. The council asked us how many ships we had assigned to council operations. We told you. You never asked about our total military capacity. The council members exchanged glances. The humans had followed the letter of galactic law while completely misleading everyone about their true strength. What does humanity want now? Zethkri asked. We want to continue being productive members of the galactic community. But we also want it understood that human colonies will never again face extinction alone. Ryan's words were broadcast across the galaxy. Every species, every government, every military leader heard the message. Humanity was no longer asking for permission. They were stating their position. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez was working in her new laboratory on New Haven when she received a priority message. The message was from the Terran Defense Force headquarters requesting her expertise on a new project. The project was called the Galactic Threat Assessment Network. Its purpose was to identify and eliminate potential dangers before they could threaten human colonies. Amanda would be in charge of the Xenobiological Analysis Division. We're not just reacting to threats anymore, her new supervisor explained during a video call. We're getting ahead of them. Every species, every planet, every potential danger will be cataloged and assessed. Amanda realized that humanity was not just revealing its military power. They were preparing to use it proactively, the galaxies. Intelligence services were working frantically to update their assessments of human capabilities. What they discovered was frightening. The peaceful human expansion had actually been the most sophisticated military deployment in galactic history. Every human colony was a forward operating base. Every trade station was a supply depot. Every diplomatic mission was a reconnaissance operation. Humanity had been building a military network that spanned thousands of light years. Admiral Kate Sullivan was promoted to Supreme Commander of Galactic Operations. Her new headquarters was a massive space station that appeared suddenly in the neutral zone between major galactic powers. The station had not been built there. It had been moved there from somewhere else, fully operational and heavily defended. The galaxy is entering a new era, Kate announced in a broadcast to all species. An era where threats to peaceful civilizations will be met with overwhelming force. Humanity has the capability to enforce galactic peace, and we intend to use it. The broadcast included footage from the Kepler 442b operation. The precision of the human weapons, the coordination of their forces, and the complete elimination of the threat sent a clear message to anyone watching. Jake Morrison received a visit from a representative of the Terran Defense Force. The representative offered him a new position as Colonial Defense Coordinator. His job would be to work with other colonies to improve their security. Every human settlement will have proper defenses, the representative explained. We're not going to rely on distress signals anymore. We're going to prevent the need for them. Jake accepted the position. He had seen what could happen when humans were threatened, and he wanted to make sure it never happened again. The Galactic Council tried to establish new regulations governing military activities, but they discovered that humanity was no longer bound by their decisions. The humans had become too powerful to control. We will continue to participate in the Council, Captain Hughes told them. But we will not accept any limitations on our ability to protect our people. The galaxy was learning to live with a new reality. The species they had thought of as newcomers were actually the dominant military power. The humans who had seemed peaceful and cooperative had been planning for galactic supremacy all along. Colony Administrator Jake Morrison stood in his new office on New Haven, looking at reports from across human space. New colonies were being established every month, each one protected by advanced military technology. The age of vulnerable human settlements was over. The SOS signal from Kepler 442b had been meant to request help. Instead, it had announced the arrival of a new galactic order. The most lethal fleet in the galaxy had not been summoned by the distress call. It had been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself, and that moment had finally come.